Is your transmission starting to feel a little different lately? A short hesitation before it grabs, a firmer clunk between the gears, a moment on the highway where the revs climb but the car doesn't quite pull the way it used to. If you've felt any of that, I want you to hear this from someone who's spent 20 years with these things apart on the bench. What your dealer is going to tell you about it is the single most profitable thing they say all day. They'll tell you your transmission is sealed, filled for life, lifetime fluid, never needs changing, never even needs looking at. That one word, lifetime, has killed more transmissions than any pothole ever will. And the simple service they swear you don't need is the exact thing that separates a transmission that dies at 130,000 from one that rolls quietly past 300. Let me show you the truth they're counting on you never to learn. Here's what's actually happening inside that case. Your automatic transmission runs on a fluid, automatic transmission fluid, ATF. And that fluid does almost everything. It's the hydraulic muscle that changes your gears. It carries the pressure that clamps the clutches together, and it hauls the heat out of a system that makes a tremendous amount of it. That fluid is holding down more jobs than the oil in your engine ever has to. It's lubricant, hydraulic fluid, coolant, and the very thing that lets your clutches grab instead of slip, all at once, all day long. And like any oil, it wears out. But it's heat that really kills it. Every time you pull a hill, tow a load, or crawl through stop and go on a hot afternoon, the temperature inside that case climbs, and heat is what breaks the fluid down. The additives that let the clutch's grip cleanly get used up. The fluid oxidizes, turns thick and dark, and slowly loses its hold on every one of those jobs at once. Most of that heat is born in the torque converter, the fluid coupling that stands in for a clutch pedal on an automatic. Every time you're sitting in gear with your foot on the brake, that converter is churning fluid and pouring heat straight into it, which is why nothing cooks a transmission faster than a hot summer commute that never breaks 20 miles an hour. As it goes, the shifts get lazy. The clutches, and those are really stacks of friction plates being squeezed together, start slipping a hair on every shift instead of grabbing clean. Every one of those little slips scrubs a bit of material off the plate and drops it into the fluid. Now the fluid isn't just worn out, it's carrying grit, and that gritty fluid gets pumped right back through the valve body, the maze of narrow passages and valves that times every shift, wearing the whole system down as it circulates. Understand what we're protecting here. This is the most complicated piece of machinery in your entire car. Hundreds of precision parts, clutch packs, and hydraulic valves all working together in fractions of a second. Every one of them depends on that single fluid staying clean. Starve it of a fresh change, and you're not neglecting a wiper blade or an air filter. You're neglecting the second most expensive thing you own on four wheels. On a lot of newer cars, the manufacturer sealed the entire thing up. No dipstick, no easy way to check it, and on some of them a pan without even a drain plug. The message is loud and clear. This is not something you're meant to touch. Here's what they don't tell you, and it's the part that matters most. Lifetime fluid does not mean the life of your car. It means the life of the warranty. When an engineer stamps a fluid, fill for life, the life he's talking about is the powertrain warranty, often somewhere around 100,000 miles. The fluid only has to survive long enough to carry the car out of warranty and off the manufacturer's books. What happens at 150, at 200,000, stopped being their problem the day that warranty expired. And there's a reason they built it this way. For years, the car makers have competed on cost of ownership. The fewer scheduled services printed on the window sticker, the cheaper the car looks to own over 5 years. Sealed for life is a selling point on the showroom floor, and most new car buyers trade or lease their way out long before the bill ever comes due. The person left holding that bill is the second or third owner, the one keeping the car for the long haul, the one this channel is made for. Here's the little tell that gives the whole thing away. Open your owner's manual, and you'll usually find two maintenance schedules, a normal one and a severe one. The severe schedule quietly lists a transmission service the normal one pretends you'll never need, and severe, when you read the fine print, means towing, heat, short trips, or stop and go, which is to say, the way nearly everybody actually drives. Think about who benefits from that word, lifetime. A dealer who tells you the transmission never needs service saves you nothing. But when that neglected unit finally cooks itself a few years down the road, guess who's standing there ready to sell you a repair that runs well into the thousands? Or better yet, for them, a whole new car. The myth doesn't cost them a dime, it costs you the car. Drop a comment below. Has a dealer or a service writer ever told you your transmission was sealed for life? I'd wager most of you have heard those exact words. But the theory is one thing. What that fluid actually looks like when I drop the pan on a lifetime transmission is what will make sure you never trust the word again. When a transmission has run on the same fluid for 150,000 miles, the pan tells the whole story, and it isn't pretty. Good fluid is a clean, bright red and it smells faintly sweet. The fluid I pour out of a neglected sealed unit comes out dark brown, sometimes nearly black, carrying a sharp burnt smell. The smell of clutch material that's been cooking for years. Down at the bottom of that pan sits a sludge. Fine metal, worn-off friction material, the ground-up remains of the very parts that were supposed to carry you to 300,000. Most of these pans have a magnet sitting in the bottom, put there to catch metal shavings. On a healthy transmission, that magnet wears a light gray fuzz. On a neglected one, it's buried under a thick paste of steel. And everything the magnet didn't catch has been circulating through those fine passages, scoring whatever it touched. That's the damage you can't see from the driver's seat until it's well along, and it shows up in stages if you know what you're feeling for. It starts as that little hesitation, that firmer clunk. Next, you might feel a shudder on light acceleration, almost like driving over a rumble strip as the torque converter clutch begins to slip. Then comes the morning delay, where you drop it into drive, count to 1, and feel the car finally engage a beat late. By the time it's slipping hard or dropping into limp mode out on the highway, the fluid did its damage tens of thousands of miles ago. There's one more way these units get killed that almost nobody warns you about. On a lot of cars, the transmission fluid is routed through a cooler built right inside your radiator. If that internal cooler springs a leak, engine coolant and transmission fluid mix into a pink slurry that techs call a strawberry milkshake, and that contamination can destroy a perfectly healthy transmission in a matter of weeks. It's worth having someone glance at your fluid anytime your coolant runs low or looks off color. Let me show you the difference in two vans I'd stand behind any day of the week. Two Toyota Siennas, both right around 150,000 miles, both owned by careful people. One owner never touched the transmission, sealed, lifetime. Why would he? The other had the fluid drained and refilled with the correct spec every 60,000 or so, quietly and cheaply. Drop both pans. The serviced van's fluid is still red, the pan is clean, and that van shifts like the day it was built. The lifetime van's fluid is that dark, burnt sludge, its magnet caked in steel paste, and it's already slipping on the 2 to 3 upshift. Same van, same mileage, same roads. One is good for another 100,000, and the other is a few months from a rebuild. That's not a lucky pair I went looking for. I've dropped hundreds of these sealed pans, and the fluid tells the same story every single time. The serviced ones come out clean, and the leave-it-alone ones come out cooked. It's the strongest pattern I know in this whole trade. And it runs worse on the continuously variable transmissions, the CVTs that so many newer cars use now. A CVT doesn't shift through gears at all. It runs a steel belt or chain squeezed between two cone-shaped pulleys, and it leans on the fluid even harder to keep that belt biting instead of sliding against the metal. Let the fluid overheat and break down, and the belt begins to glaze and slip against the pulleys, and once those surfaces are polished, the unit is finished. A Nissan with one of those CVTs, sold with the very same lifetime fluid promise, runs hotter and forgives even less. I've watched those units surrender well before 200,000 on original fluid. And a replacement CVT is one of the priciest repairs on the road, higher still than a conventional rebuild. A retired long-haul trucker in Tulsa came to me sick over exactly this. Here's a man who spent his whole career around big diesels, who understood machinery better than most mechanics, and even he took the lifetime fluid label on his own Honda Pilot at its word, never serviced it. Around 140,000 it started slipping, and the fix was a full rebuild, a 4-figure repair on a paid-off truck he'd planned to drive another decade. The service that would have prevented all of it was a cheap routine fluid change he could have done a handful of times across those miles. He did the math out loud, and it just about broke his heart. Quick reminder before I show you exactly how to protect yours. If this is the kind of straight talk you want more of, hit that subscribe button. It's the thing that keeps these coming. Here's the good news, and it's genuinely simple to act on. The fix is the very transmission service they told you that you don't need. And done right, it's the cheapest insurance you'll ever buy. What you want is a fluid change, a drain and fill or a proper fluid exchange using the exact fluid your transmission was engineered for. Not a universal bottle, not whatever's on sale. The correct spec, because the wrong fluid in a modern transmission causes its own set of problems. These units are tuned around one very specific fluid. Its friction characteristics tell the clutches exactly how firmly and how fast to grab. Pour in a one-size-fits-all bottle, and the shifts can go harsh or mushy, and the wear starts up all over again. This is the one corner you never cut. Finding that spec is easier than they let on. It's in your owner's manual, and the parts counter at the dealer can tell you the exact fluid right off your VIN. The fluid itself runs about $8 to $15 a quart, And most of these units take somewhere around 4 to 6 quarts for a single drain and fill. Here's the one thing to understand about a drain and fill. It only swaps the fluid that drops out of the pan, usually somewhere between a third and a half of what's in there, because the rest is held up in the torque converter and the cooler lines. That's not a flaw in the method. It's exactly why the smart move on a higher mileage unit is to do a drain and fill, drive it a few hundred miles, then do it again. 2 or 3 gentle changes over a month refresh nearly all of it without ever shocking the system. If your transmission has a serviceable pan with a filter inside, dropping that pan to change the filter and the gasket, a kit that runs about $30 to $60, is worth doing every other service. And if you just bought the car used and have no idea when the fluid was last touched, treat the answer as never. Don't panic, and don't let anyone talk you into a flush. Just do that. First gentle drain and fill now, then 2 more spaced out over the next few months, and you've reset the clock without gambling the unit. How often? Forget the word lifetime. The number most veteran techs actually trust is every 60 to 100,000 miles, and toward the sooner end if you tow, haul, sit in heavy traffic, or live somewhere hot. That severe service schedule buried in the back of your manual is far more honest than the lifetime line on the showroom floor. Now, one real warning, because this is where people get scared off the whole idea. If a transmission has already gone a very long way on its original fluid, you do not want to shop blasting it with a high-pressure flush. On a badly neglected unit, that aggressive flush can tear loose all that built-up material at once and tip a struggling transmission right over the edge. A gentle drain and fill is the safer road there, the same 2 or 3 pass approach I just walked you through. Any honest shop knows that difference cold, and the good ones will steer you toward it themselves. You also don't have to crawl back to the dealer for any of this. A good independent transmission shop services these sealed units every day. They know how to check the level through the fill plug at the right fluid temperature, the exact step the sealed design was built to scare you away from, and set it properly. When you call around, ask if they'll do a drain and fill with the factory spec fluid. The shop that says yes without trying to talk you into a power flush is the one you want. Now let me set the real numbers side by side, because this is where it lands. The service, the one they swear you don't need, runs about $150 to $300 at a shop, and you do it a handful of times across the whole life of the car. Call it a few $100s a decade to keep the single most expensive part of your vehicle alive. Skip it, and here's the other side of the ledger. When a neglected transmission lets go, a used unit pulled from a yard is $1,200 to $2,000 just for the part before anyone bolts it in. A proper rebuild or a new transmission runs $4,000 to $7,000, and a CVT climbs higher still. On a paid-off car, that's the repair that makes good people throw up their hands and go sign for a new one they never wanted, on a fixed income that can't really carry it. And if you tow even a few times a year, a camper, a boat, a loaded trailer, every one of these numbers arrives sooner because towing is the fastest way there is to cook that fluid. That's exactly the driver who most wants this to be the last car he ever buys, and it's the driver the lifetime myth punishes the hardest. That's the whole game. A couple $100s now, spent on purpose, or a few thousand later, sprung on you at the worst possible moment. The transmission they told you to ignore is the one part most likely to decide whether your car sails past $300,000 or gets scrapped at $150. So here's the bottom line. As plain as I can put it, there is no such thing as lifetime fluid. There's only fluid you change, and fluid that quietly kills your transmission while you trust a word printed by the same people who profit the day it dies. And if you want the next habit that's wearing your engine down while you think you're being careful with it, the cold morning routine almost everyone gets exactly backwards. That video is playing right now on your screen. Click it and I'll see you there.